our languages, our culture, our people, indeed our constraints and our priorities. Now, AI can, should, and will be the foundation of inclusive growth. It can accelerate productivity, and it can close access gaps when we talk about healthcare, agriculture, and education, and help us solve problems at population scale. So the way we think about it is, there's a lot of hype, right? People say, is it gonna be real? And we talk about adding, say, 400 billion, through AI to our economy by 2030. But we deeply believe this in Google. Think about AI and measuring AI in how it will transform lives and not just balance sheets and P&Ls. And the way we need AI to be inclusive is based on three things. One, understanding our language and cultural context. We need to make sure that AI that is deployed understands the key languages in India or other countries in Global South. And for that, making sure that we are training AI through local data sets is absolutely key. And that is what we have been doing with our open source models like Gemma or project called Vani, where we provided data sets of local dialects in India to be made available to train models, because only then can it be deployed to be of value to every Indian. And then we are talking about building local capability. So it's about building compute and infrastructure locally, developing that pipeline of talent, because it's very important that we are not just implementing something that is developed elsewhere, we are also innovating. And last but not the least, it is if we innovate in a responsible manner and deploy it in the right manner, we can absolutely scale it, like I said, to close access gaps and leapfrog ahead.
So AI not just for economic value, but for real impact at scale.
Transforming the lives of every single citizen.
Every single. So AI has a lot of promise. But what about real progress? As you said that, at Google, you're solving for the constraints. You are training your data sets on different languages, understanding the culture. But there are constraints like there is no internet. Many families have one phone between them. Even then, there is intermittent connectivity. I mean, there are so many challenges to achieve this inclusive growth and have that impact, the desired impact.
So think about this. We've been India in deep partnership with India over 2 decades, right? And some of these constraints that you talk about, it's not just about a low-end smartphone or internet connectivity issues. It is about, just people having different cultural context or different levels of digital literacy. So I would like to say that we've been working on this, and by the way, we have been an AI company for several years, building AI into our search, maps, and all other products for years. So when we think about, how our products, so think about search or maps or even YouTube, we have carefully built our products, and if I may use that term, we make sure that if you're in a zone with low connectivity, the performance will degrade a little bit. The video quality or the audio quality may go down, but it'll come back up to that great quality once your network improves. So we've learned over the years as Google in India on how to make our products work for some of these constraints, how to have the lighter versions of our products on lower-end phones also. The second thing when you talk about these constraints is building in inclusive accessibility for all our products. We have invested hugely in smoothing out the UX interface, right? So think about Google Pay. From a street vendor who's not very digitally literate, they can use Google Pay to make payments and make a living, and to the most sophisticated users. So we have learned over time to make sure we have built that UX which makes our products inclusive, regardless of the quality of phone that you have and the internet accessibility that you have. And that thinking and that experience is what is continuing in how we are developing and deploying AI into specific apps and use cases. And we're also working with local partners, Reema, by the way. A very important part of our Google work here is to bring the best of our full stack approach. We have the infrastructure and compute, we have the cutting edge frontier models, and we are building apps. But we do it in partnership with local, ecosystem developers, academia, research teams, so that everyone is thinking local and India first.
You know, Preeti, you just heard the discussion that we were having on cybersecurity and what it means in an AI-enabled world. There are deep fakes, there's misinformation. What does security mean to you? Wanted you to get your views in. And how does Google work with the entire ecosystem to bring in that alignment?
So I want to say it is a very important and critical priority for us, but it's very important equally to understand it's a shared collective responsibility of the ecosystem between the regulators, players, the tech companies and telecom providers, what you call the safety experts. So I always like to think of this as safety is infrastructure. It is foundational. It's a horizontal. Before we think of anything else, you got to build it in. So 4 or 5 principles. Security by design. It's not an afterthought. Build it as you think about designing your product or your infrastructure. So it's not an afterthought. Then you think about governance. It's very important to bring the strongest sort of safeguards in the highest risk areas, but being smart about where we leave room for innovation. So when to go hard, when to pull back. Then, in this age of synthetic content and deep fakes, having tools in place which can, we talk about watermarking all synthetic content in a visible or a non-transparent way, and then ways of detecting that so that people know that this is fake content. And then we're talking about real-time threat intelligence, which the previous panel was also talking about. We can only stay ahead in the game at a country level, at a global level, if there is a very good and fast way of sharing, how scammers are getting ahead, what's the latest game in town. But as Sachin was also saying in the previous panel, AI is actually enabling us as defenders to be just catching up with the perpetrators. And last but not the least, we believe in user resilience. So making sure we are investing in educating users in a very simple manner so they know I'm getting phished or I'm getting scammed or so it's a multi 360-degree layer approach, but working with the ecosystem.
A lot of businesses, companies, founders must come to you asking you, how should I use AI? Everyone believes that AI can transform their business. How much of that is hype? How much of that is reality? What is the advice that you would give founders who can use AI to make a real impact?
So 2, 3 things. We will say to founders, values over vibes or feelings. Make sure you're developing something that you can measure, whether it's revenue, cost saving, some measurable impact, better returns. 2 is think about things in a very systemic way. Think about transforming process, not just a bolt-on or an add-on cool feature. And then, like I said earlier, just build trust in as a product. So you're always thinking of that and not that as a cool thing. I think we work a lot with the founders and that ecosystem. We have a startup accelerator, and we are working with a lot of AI startups to share, our expertise. We share cloud credits and all of that. And we look at them and we say, are you solving the hard problems of India? When you talk about preventive healthcare, when you talk about diagnostics for tier 2, tier 3 rural Indians, who don't have that access, when you're talking about personalized learning or an AI tutor for anyone, whether it's an affluent kid or a kid, who does not have access to the best that we have access to. Efficient logistics. So think of the use case and hard problems, not the cool thing. And then look at India's unique strengths. Look at DPI. So build on those guardrails. Make sure it's localized. And if you ask yourself, are you solving the hard problems of India? If it works on a low-cost device with poor connectivity and in local languages, we tell the founders it will scale not just in India, but anywhere in the world.
How wonderful. Preeti, thank you very, very much for sharing your insights. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Preeti, and thank you, Reema, for taking us through that conversation. Resilience, it's what every CEO, every investor, every policymaker claims they're building for. But when you strip away the rhetoric, what does resilience actually look like in India today?
Well, because the tests are real and they're happening now. Supply chains are being redrawn by geopolitics. Monsoon problems are shifting, affecting agriculture that still employs nearly half the workforce. The financial system needs to channel credit to 60 million MSMEs while managing risk. Infrastructure is being built at breakneck speed, but can it handle the load when it arrives? These aren't, planning exercises. These are life challenges, determining whether India's growth story sustains or stumbles.
To lead this conversation, we have back on stage with us Shireen Bhan, and joining her is Hitendra Dave, CEO of HSBC India, as they discuss what's truly working on the ground to build a resilient India and what only looks good on paper. Please join me in welcoming them both with a big round of applause.
Hitendra, it's wonderful to have you back at the Global Leadership Summit. Thank you very much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, I do want to make a special mention because HSBC has been partnering with us, not just for the Global Leadership Summit, but for something else that is very, very close to my heart personally. It's our campaign called Future Female Forward, where we talk about the need for gender neutrality, gender parity in the workforce. So thank you again for partnering with us for both this as well as for Future Female Forward, Hitendra.
Only thing, you should have said it's close to our heart. Not
Yes,
just yours.
I admit, that was a mistake. It is close to our heart, absolutely. But through the course of the day, we've had the global economy being described as tenuous, as volatile, as uncertain. But there is unanimity and consensus as far as the Indian economy is concerned. Stable is perhaps the most sort of underrated adjective that I've heard so far this morning about the Indian economy. So let's put that in balance. What's happening globally with respect to what's happening in India? Hitendra, how do you see the picture today?
Yeah, so I think you said it yourself. I think if you look at the monetary policy statements or any policy statement of any central bank, ECB, Bank of England, Federal Reserve, Reserve Bank of India, I think the word that's been most commonly used is uncertainty, right? Because we are living through unprecedented times in terms of policy actions, and I don't think any of us, any policymaker, any sovereign has a playbook. What happens if your tariffs go to X levels? What happens if certain products you just are not allowed to export or allowed to import, etc. So far, I think we have to say that the wise people about a year back or at the start of the year were indicating that there would be deep recession by now. There will be highly inflationary economies by now. Now, whatever is happening, that's not the case. We are not at the cusp of a recession, and we are certainly not looking at runaway inflation of the types that were feared 8-10 months back or so. So, if you sort of go by that narrative, and then to your question on India, right? I mean, you look at India, political stability, whichever way, 10, 11 years of extreme political stability. We get upset when we grow at 5.5%, right? Which is higher than the average rate of growth of the world. Inflation has been low and stable now for the last 7-8 years, more than it's ever been. We've got financial sector stability, market stability. So if you look at India in the context of a world which seems highly uncertain, clearly we shine out. We shine out in pockets. I think in the previous panel we were talking about how much infrastructure is getting built, etc. So yes, I think by all accounts, the moment is ours to seize as a country. Because if there is a shining beacon out there in the world which shows stability, promise, growth, certainty, then that's India. So now, as citizens, as part of the financial system, as part of the communication or the media system, or policy makers who've been here since morning, I think all of us are seized of the opportunity. let's see what we do with it.
It is our moment to seize, as you put it, Hitendra Dave. But the HSBC Global Leadership was here in India a few weeks ago. We've got many global leaders who've been in and out of India at this point in time. One of the issues or the dissonance that's being discussed is that while there's a lot of interest, a lot of enthusiasm about the India story, the domestic market, as well as the opportunity to export from India, at this point in time, there seems to be some hesitation, some pullback, or a pause perhaps on FDI flows coming in. What's the sense that you get from the conversations that you're having? Is this a tactical pause at this point in time, given the uncertain waters we're in?
Yeah, so I think it's a very fair observation that on the one hand, we have this wonderful narrative of India, which we spoke in the earlier part just now. And then you look at the data and it seems to suggest that the flows are not commensurate with the narrative that we have or with the visits by various boards, ours included, etc. But again, boards are responsible to shareholders and they are all living in the same uncertain world, right? You set up a factory here, commit a very large amount of FDI running into hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions.